cage another. Just stick with the cage. Use the cage when you're rolling. It's kind of like a technique or as a strategy or whatever you want to call it. One of the criticisms that some people have of Jiu-Jitsu is that it takes place in a sterile environment, so it's not that applicable in real life situations. That's, but it does. But when you use the cage, it does bring up the reality of, like, if you get into a real life situation, you're not going to be on a mat on an open surface necessarily. You're going to be willing to stop. You're going to have to work off of that. You don't like this question, I'll do it.
Oh, that's right.
I don't give a shit, we're doing it. So just talk about how you use it, if you think it should be.
Well, you got to break that into several questions, so just start. Or you could ask, don't repeat that. I don't want to hear you talk. So you got to break that into different questions, right? Because there's the sterile environment, or the environment that is a favorable environment, right? The favorable environment for jiu-jitsu, people make the argument of, oh, there's no mats outside on the street, there's no like padded blah 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 outside on the street, so they'll make the argument that the environment is set up to be favorable for the application of jiu-jitsu, and then it will fall apart when you are not outside. Now, what I will say about walls, the second part of that question is the use of walls when you train. I will say that if you are the person that plays a game that is relying on that favorable environment, then you are correct. Those people's argument wouldn't be untrue. You know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't be wrong because you're relying on a favorable thing. Like, if your jiu-jitsu only works without punches, then they're correct. Like, punching is not going to work for you. You know what I mean? Like, if your game is this flip upside down, asshole first fucking donkey guard bullshit, then you're correct. Like, somebody's going to stab you in the asshole when you start trying to walk at them backwards on the street, So if you play a game that is nonsensical, then you're correct. Your application on the street is going to also be nonsensical. But if you play the game right, they're saying it as if it were a fact across the board of all grappling styles or all jiu-jitsu in application. And it's not. It's all in the way that you practice, right? Not in the fact that you practice, but in the way that you practice. So then what happens is, if you have a wall to train up against, a padded wall or a cage very often, if we have a wall that we can practice up against, I want people to practice up against it. We don't do that bullshit. We don't do that bullshit where you go, oh, we're getting close to the wall, let's move. Like, if we're training up against a wall, then we're fucking training up against a wall. The idea to me is that jiu-jitsu is not... Jiu-jitsu is, it's going to turn into a fucking sewing circle right there, right? Jiu-jitsu is we'll tell them to go, hey, you guys want to talk somewhere else? Because we're recording. Fuck those guys, right? Makes cool ambiance, but then you can't hear. So the idea is that people mistakenly believe that jiu-jitsu is a ground fighting art. You know what I mean? Like, they think that the idea in jiu-jitsu is that I want to put you on the ground. It's not that I want to put you on the ground. It's that I want to use a surface to control your movement. There are two safe places in a fight. There's too far, and there's too close, right? If I'm too far away, you can't hurt me. If I'm too close, you can't hurt me. You use the ground because it's easier to stay too close when there's a fixed object behind someone preventing them from running away from you. So if I'm standing up and I'm holding you in the middle of a room, it's easier for you to try to become too far away from me, because all you have to do is break the grip that I'm using to hold on to you, right? Will you let her out? You can break the grip and thwart that idea, because I can't control the distance as well. So the answer in jiu-jitsu is to grab them, trip them up, and put them on the ground. But you're not putting them on the ground because you want them on the ground. You're putting them on the ground because the ground is the surface that you can use to control them, because there's ground on one side and gravity on the other. So I can hold myself too close to you with greater ease when I'm using gravity on my side. Keep an eye on her, dude. You know what I mean? So the wall is the exact same thing. It's just a less efficient version of the ground, if that makes any sense, right? Like, if I put you up against the wall, I am using a surface to limit your movement so I can maintain too close more efficiently than if I'm trying to maintain too close out in the middle of the floor. The only reason it's not as preferable as the ground is because I have to use only my effort to push you into the wall. Like, I have to provide effort. I can lay on top of you providing zero effort when you're on the ground because gravity lets my body press against the floor of the other surface, right? But against the wall, gravity isn't helping me, so I have to actually add all of the power to it. So it's a less efficient version of the ground. But jiu-jitsu in its heart is not necessarily a ground fighting art. I know it's going to sound weird. It's not necessarily a ground fighting art. It is a positional restriction art. You're going to try to limit the positional movement of the other person so you can A, stay too close, and B, manipulate the position to make it favorable for you. That can take place in space. I mean, we could do it in a zero gravity environment. It's just I'm going to have to control everything about it. I can use a wall to limit it. I can use the ground to limit it. But these are just strategic uses of surfaces to help me control position and make it more efficient to maintain too close to the opponent, if that makes sense. So that's the use of the fucking wall, right? And you talk about using the wall just like you talk about using the ground. You know, and the positional ideas are the same. You can hip out, moving up and down the wall. I can use the wall to limit your hip movement. I can use the wall to limit your head movement. I can use the wall to limit your legs. Like, there's a ton of shit that you can do. It follows the same logic that the ground follows. It's just that it takes more effort to hold the person against the wall. Right? So that's the ground. The idea. Hang on a sec. All right, you ready? So that is the wall discussion. Specifically the wall. The next thing we can talk about is the favorable surface and shit like that. People talk all this shit about the mat, right? The mat is like the gi. The mat and the gi are similar in the fact that they make training more efficient, but they don't matter, if that makes sense, right? Like, a dude wears a fucking sweatshirt, I'm gonna use that sweatshirt to choke the shit out of you. If you're wearing a fucking t-shirt, I'm gonna use the t-shirt to choke the shit out of you. If you're on a mat, I'm gonna mount you if you're on the fucking concrete. It's just that when I mount you on the fucking, I don't know what they're doing. If I mount you on the concrete, right? Like, if I mount you on the concrete, my jeans are gonna get ripped in the knees and I'm gonna have bloody knees. Because when you move around, it's gonna skin up my fucking knees, right? But I'm not gonna not fucking mount you because the concrete's gonna skin me up. If I shoot a double leg on the ground, on the concrete, yeah, dude, I'm gonna fucking bang my knee probably. I'm gonna cut my knee probably. But man, fuck, you know what I mean? Like, that's not gonna stop me from doing it. If I escape the mount in a fight, I'm probably gonna get punched in the face once or twice as I escape the mount. It doesn't mean I don't escape the fucking mount. I'm just gonna take the damage associated with this fucking problem and deal with it. The reason that we have mats is not because we need mats to make jiu-jitsu work. It's because if I get a scab on my knees, I then got to take a week off of training till the scab heals, and I'm going to get less repetitions of jiu-jitsu in on a concrete surface. You know what I mean? If I'm training against a brick wall and I bust my head open on the side of the brick wall posting, it's going to take me 2 weeks to get the stitches out of my head so I can continue to do jiu-jitsu. That's why we put padding on the fucking walls. That's why we use fences with fucking rubberized fencing so it doesn't scratch us and cut us up so bad, you know? We make the surfaces favorable, the gi. If I choke you with your t-shirt, I'm gonna tear the shit out of your t-shirt. We're gonna have to buy t-shirts once a fucking day. It's gonna spend $100 a week in fucking t-shirts. It's gonna be stupid. But we train in a gi, and we train on padded surfaces, and we train against padded rubberized fucking walls to make it more efficient to do jiu-jitsu more often so we can be better at it, not because we need those things to make it happen. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? So, like, look at kids at skateboard. Kids at skateboards, they don't need to wear knee pads. You can fall off a skateboard and skin up your knee. It's just that you're gonna have to do less repetitions, like you wear fucking knee pads when you're skating in a concrete bowl, so you can bail, slide down the thing, get back up, and do 25 more reps until you finally nail the technique. You could do it. You're not gonna die. You could totally skate without fucking knee pads. You could totally take one of those slides, which is gonna tear your shit all up, and then you're not gonna skate again for a month, and you're gonna get less good. But if you practice in knee pads to save your kneecaps and you develop good skill with the fucking whatever it is, McTwist or whatever, and then you get good at it, you can totally do it without knee pads. The knee pads aren't gonna help you pull off the fucking technique. The knee pads are gonna let you put in more time in the fucking modality so you can develop the skills so you can do it without using the knee pads. You know what I mean? Because in a fight, the truth is, in a fight, you're gonna get fucked up. I whoop a 12-year-old kid's ass. I'm gonna get teeth in my hands, I'm gonna get skint up knees, I'm gonna get skint up elbows. There's no such thing as a fight that doesn't require some payment from you. There's no such thing. You know what I mean? Like, there's literally no such thing. And so it's like, you just gotta decide what's the payment you're willing to make, you know what I mean? I'd rather use jiu-jitsu beautifully and get skint up, tear up my sweatshirt, get a little skint up, than use some fucking bullshit that's gonna get me beat the fuck up, you know what I mean? So, yeah, we don't need the favorable environment and the favorable clothing. We use it because it makes it easier to get reps, to get better skill, to make it when we're outside, I've got the skill to survive the skint up knees and bullshit like that. You don't need the fucking favorable environment, it just makes training easier, and easier to do long term.